Good morning. I wish to recognize the presence of the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Secretary to the Government, Dr. Aduda, the presence of Dr. Mahmoud Isa Duse, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance. I should also mention our distinguished presenters, Dr. Donald Kaberuka, and also Dr. Mansour Mukhtar. Let me extend my welcome to all other distinguished guests, and you will permit me to say all other protocols observed. I think the details have already been mentioned by the Managing Director, Tony Okpanachi. I want to say a few words with regards to why the Development Bank of Nigeria was established. There are many reasons, but I want to focus on only a few of them. And this morning, what I want to speak about has mostly to do with the issue of jobs and employment. Because these are some of the most important challenges of our time. For many reasons. Clearly, unemployment deepens poverty, worsens income inequality, and generates profound social and political challenges. In addition, of course, it significantly undermines human dignity and self-respect. If you look at the trajectory of growth in Nigeria, you will see that GDP, gross domestic product, increased at an average rate of 8% or so between 2000 and 2013, for those 13 years. During that period also, per capita income in the country surged from as little as $646 to $2,937 by 2013. In 2004, poverty level in Nigeria was about 63%. Unemployment was at about 12%. After 10 years of rapid growth, by 2014, the poverty level had increased to 68%, and unemployment had doubled. Youth unemployment had risen to something like 34%. In other words, Nigeria had grown, but unemployment and poverty had deepened. Income inequality had worsened. As you know, the current figures for unemployment are at something like 23.1%. Nearly a quarter of the 90.5 million workforce in the country. Youth unemployment is currently around 30%, 29.72% precisely. And graduate unemployment is over 25%. Why did this happen? I want to show that the problem was not specific to Nigeria, because the story in the whole of Africa has been roughly the same. Between 2000 and 2013, GDP growth rate in sub-Saharan Africa grew at about 5% a year on average. Yet, poverty and unemployment had remained high, and youth unemployment had only reduced by 0.9% during this period. According to the African Economic Outlook of the African Development Bank, growth in Africa between the whole of the period between 1958 and 2016 had only increased employment intensity by 0.009%. This is because the elasticity of employment growth with respect to GDP growth was only 0.41%, meaning that for each 1% growth in GDP, employment rose by only 0.41. In the meantime, the labor force had grown at the rate of 3% per year. Consequently, 38 out of 47 African countries had employment growth rates lower than GDP growth rates. And between 2000 and 2010, the Gini coefficient in Africa had increased substantially, meaning that inequality had increased. In other words, what happened in Africa also, what happened in Nigeria also happened, broadly speaking, in Africa. Jobless growth. There are many reasons for this, but briefly, since I don't have the time to go into the details of the argument, all I can say at this point is that the key factor in both Nigeria and Africa in general is that GDP growth has also intensified demand for capital and imported consumer goods, including consumer durables. Thereby, this means that most of the jobs had actually been exported out of Nigeria and out of Africa. In the meantime, what was happening in Africa is that Africa was de-industrializing. The future path of growth must involve the translation of growth, investment, and human skills to boost, amongst other things, local value addition, stronger organic link between local production and manufacturing and processing, between the micro, small, and medium enterprises and larger enterprises. It must involve progress from low productivity informal enterprises to higher productivity formal enterprises. This is part of what it takes to achieve structural transformation, accelerate growth, generate jobs, and engender a more equal income distribution in Nigeria. This does not mean pursuing a policy of self-isolation. It means promoting local production and intensifying international trade, cooperation, and collaboration as well. However, many studies by DBN, by SMEDAN, by CBN, and others have identified finance as a major constraint for micro, small, and medium enterprises. The World Bank Enterprise Surveys has also clearly indicated that finance was the first of 15 major challenges confronting the MSME sector. Yet, commercial bank lending to micro, small, and medium enterprises, which was already low, has further contracted from something like 48% of bank lending in 1992 to as little as 5% by 2015. This is why the establishment of the Development Bank of Nigeria is particularly essential, so that it can act along with other development finance institutions, deposit money banks, DMBs, microfinance bank, and others to support micro, small, and medium enterprises, which play a critical role in promoting both growth, jobs, as well as helping to alleviate poverty and reduce income inequality. I wish to acknowledge the efforts of the current government to articulate through the Economic Recovery and Growth Program the transformation needs of this country and the implementation of some programs. For example, some of the social investment programs and agricultural production and value addition programs, which are intended to address jobs and poverty. We also acknowledge some of the programs that are being implemented by the Central Bank of Nigeria. But these programs need to be expanded on a much, much bigger scale and sustained in order to address the size of the problem. For the DBN, it's early days yet. We can't tell you that we have done well. It's still early. But what we can say is that in the last 1.5 years in which the DBN has been fully operational, the bank has lent more than 70 billion naira and has impacted on more than 50,000 enterprises. Majority of them women-owned. I won't say more about what the DBN has done. I will only say two things. Quoting from some of our development partners. The World Bank midterm review of the DBN, done in July this year, that is this month, and I quote, they said, DBN is institutionally operational and is fully in compliance with prevailing regulations with exceptional quality of corporate governance standards. Another quotation from the World Bank says, in the short period since the DBN became operational in late 2007, it has already established a strong record for effectiveness and professionalism as evidenced by the participating financial institutions. The African Development Bank, which is also our equity contributor and lender, in its annual supervision mission this month also said, and I quote, that 4 participating financial institutions visited during our mission expressed their overall satisfaction with DBN operations, describing them as prompt and responsive. What has been done so far, I can only say thanks to our owners, led by the Federal Government of Nigeria, represented today by Dr. Mahmoud Dutse, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, the African Development Bank, the director in Nigeria is present here, and the European Investment Bank, our owners. I also express strong appreciation for the support from the World Bank, the Agence de Développement Français, AFD, KfW, who have provided not only loans and grants to the Development Bank of Nigeria, but also intellectual support I also express appreciation to the highly qualified board of the for the Development Bank of Nigeria, the management, as well as the staff of the bank. Thank you very much for what has been done so far. Of course, we hope the best is yet to come. With those, I wish to simply call now on those who are going to present the app for the MSMEs to please come and present it. Thank you very much for your attention.